Hello there, flight sim fans. Here we are again with another tutorial. Today we're talking about the FSLabs ATSU, the ATSU for short. In this video we will be demonstrating how to use the ATSU with GSX. So without further ado, let's dive in. So what's the ATSU? The ATSU is the Air Traffic Service Unit. So it's a computer which can be accessed through the MCDU. And airlines are able to build their own custom menus with this, and that way they can access different services like pre-departure clearance, fuel requests, reporting, time logging, weather requests, and much, much more. Now, FSLabs have done a tremendous job with this latest update. The feedback from the community, from the customers, has been phenomenal. And the only issue that is popping up on the forums is people are struggling with using the manual that came with the latest update. So that's why I thought, well, I'll make a video how I personally use this. And for me, it's very intuitive because I'm using this in my everyday professional life as a pilot. And I'm absolutely positive that once you've done this 3 or 4 times, you will become a pro as well. And what has fascinated me right from the beginning, the first time that I got a beta version of this to test, was how well it is integrated with GSX. So the whole ground operations are actually now coordinated through the MCDU AOC function. So the AOC stands for the Airline Operational Control Menu. But before I explain how to use that menu, we first of all need to do a flight plan. And I know that you have done that many times before. And personally, I prefer to use the completely free of charge service from simbrief.com. So once you've compiled your flight plan, and it doesn't matter which airline format you use as the operational flight plan, it is important that you save it either manually or through the SimBrief downloader into a folder that is placed in your main drive, users, and then public. That is very important. It has to be the public folder, and then documents, FSLabs data, routes. If that folder has not been created by the installation process, then just simply add that folder in the mentioned path. So once you've saved your flight plan into that folder, you are good to go to initialize your flight. However, before we do that, there is something we have to do on the audio control panel. So once you're at the gate and you've used the panel state on GPU, the external power will be connected, chocks are in place, and the aircraft will be empty. Next, select the INT switch on the audio control panel to start off or trigger the GSX menu. And that way you have the option to operate a jetway through SOD, or if that option is not available, use the Control and J key to move the jetway manually to the aircraft. And while we're looking at the audio control panel, you might as well turn on the cabin and the passenger rest volume buttons. That keeps you in the process, and you'll hear the announcements being made in the cabin. And that's it. Now we are ready to start initializing the flight. And so what we do is we move to the init A page. And there we simply fill in the actual flight number that we have selected in our flight plan. So for us it's DLH123. And then simply press the init request button. After a couple of seconds, all the data from your stored flight plan is being pulled into the MCDU. And on this init A page, we shall select the wind prompt on the right in order to upload and uplink the latest wind data. And that is for climb, cruise, and descent winds. Be aware, the upload of those wind values will take a couple of minutes. So don't be worried if it doesn't load instantly. So you may ask yourself, how on earth is it going to pull in wind data? Where's this data coming from? And there you have some options in the MCU. So you go to the ATSU and then the COM menu, and then you'll find a couple of prompts under the VHF3 data mode. So for example, you can see the ACARS Hoppy being selected. Most people use Hoppy service for ACARS transmissions, either TAILX or pre-departure clearance, oceanic clearance. Now Hoppy is completely free of charge, and I'll post a link down in the comment section below if you're interested in registering for that service. Now for me personally, I have Active Sky, and so obviously I have selected Hi-Fi as my weather service. Now you can also select VATSIM or IVEO. On the second page, you have the option to use ATIS service, and there again you have the option between VATSIM and IVEO. And so whenever IVEO or VATSIM has a ATIS available for an airport, you don't have to be logged on to VATSIM or IVEO. You can actually use that service and call up these ATIS. So going back to our init A page, remember we've just uploaded the wind data. Now we go into the ATSU menu, and there we initialize the flight as well through the AOC menu and the init prompt. And there's three major blocks that we will do right now. The first one is the init, the second one is the OFB data, and the third one is the boarding process. So let's have a look at the first page, the init page, and there we simply fill in the flight number again, so DLH123. Another prompt open at the moment, you can see that through the orange boxes. So something that we have to fill out is the ETE, the en route time, so the estimate time en route. And we take that value from the OFP, Operational Flight Plan, and in our case it is actually 49 minutes. On the second page you can enter a pilot and co-pilot identification number. That's what we call it in real life. So whatever you like to put in, you don't have to. And then once that's filled out, you just simply send that request off by pressing the init data request. You see that's queued, and now initialization is received. Once that is completed, we'll go back to the main menu and we'll go to the second prompt, which is the OFP data. Now normally you would see all the data regarding block fuel, taxi fuel, trip fuel, the zero fuel weight already pulled into the menu. If not, then you have to fill it out yourself, take the values from the operational flight plan. Standard departure time, you can use anything up to 60 minutes from the actual time. Use something that makes sense to you. So if you are using these kind of menus for the first time, use, let's say, 45 to 60 minutes. Just take your time, don't rush yourself. On this OFP data page, you are actually initializing the fueling process. So you have several options. One of them would be instant, and just like the name says, if you select that, the fuel will be instantly loaded into the aircraft without any animation, obviously. The automatic option is also a fueling process without outside animations, but the fuel will not be instantly loaded. It's simulated according real-time increase of the fuel level. Then we have GSX, obviously that's what we use today, and the last prompt is manual, And if you select that, then you have the option to manually select your fuel values through the app that comes with the FSLabs installation. Right, so we've got 57.2 tons of zero fuel weight, and we will refuel via GSX. So we'll send the data off, and then the GSX fueling is automatically requested. Last thing to do here, the third block, is obviously the boarding. We'll have a look at the values again. Now make sure that the zero fuel weight that you are requesting here is the same as stated on the flight plan. So for us today it's 57.2 tons. Select that. The MCDU will normally do a standard distribution. You can see 41, 41, 41 on the passenger side. Now I'm going to change that. So we'll have a little bit less passengers in the rear, a little bit more passengers in the front, so that the center of gravity is moved a bit forward. You don't have to do that, but you know, if you want a more neutral trim setting, then that would be an option to do. Once you're happy with that, go to page number 2, and there you find some more options regarding water and catering levels. Then if you want a catering animation, you can request that through this prompt here as well. That's what we'll do now. So switching to the outside view, we can see the fueling is being done at the moment. And so we'll just wait now for the catering trucks to pull up. So there they are, approaching the aircraft. And so, yeah, there's a simulation of catering as well, as you can see. And again, you don't have to do that, but if you like the complete process with fueling, catering, and once that is completed, then with the boarding, then by all means do so. What is also really, really cool is that now the opening and closing of all the doors happens fully automatic. You don't have to go into the GSX menu yourself, just simply order the different processes, and the doors are operated automatically by GSX. So coming back to our boarding menu, then obviously now we have to coordinate the time for boarding to begin. Of course, you have the option to do that instantly, and if you select that prompt and then press request, the complete boarding is done instantly. But let's say for now we shall start boarding in about 8 minutes from now, so at 12:50 UTC. So we've entered the time, and we're going to press now request, and that's it. You don't have to worry about anything else right now. GSX will bring up the menu for the boarding at 12:50, and it'll ask you how many passengers you would like to board. Looking at the first AOC message that we have received, it's the slot notification message. And we can see Bremen to Frankfurt, and the CTOT at the present time is at 13:45. So that's a window which starts 5 minutes prior to that time, so at 13:40, and will allow you a 15-minute time frame, so up to 13:55. So 13:40 to 13:55. That's the time frame that you would have to be airborne at. And so since the estimated taxi time is 20 minutes, then obviously your estimated off-block time would be 13:25. That's how these times are actually calculated here. So the delay is actually 0 minutes, and that's why you have the AE code there. There's different codes. For example, AW would mean a weather delay, and that can occur with low visibility, or snow, or strong winds, for example. Then you might see the code Alpha X-ray, that will be for ATC delay. And then you have another code called Echo November, and that will be en route delay. and that is due to airway congestion. So there will be variations in taxi time and also delay time depending on the conditions, and you have to be flexible and see it as a challenge to meet that slot time, so that window for departure stated in the CTOT. So depending on the time frame until the CTOT, and hence the estimate off-block time, you now have to think about when you would like to start boarding the passengers. You can start as early as 40 minutes before EOBT, and the minimum time would be around 15 minutes. And if you have a lot of passengers, then plan for about 25 to 30 minutes for the boarding process. So we've decided to board the passengers about 35 minutes before the EOBT. That should give us enough time for the process and do all the checklists, etc., etc. Anyways, we've now got the 3 big blocks out of the way, so the init, OFP data, and the boarding process. And now we can concentrate on our flight planning, so departure route, arrival route, and so on. And for that, obviously, we need some weather data, first of all. And so we'll go into the ATSU menu again and go to weather ATIS. We can try the departure ATIS prompt, and if you're lucky and VATSIM has an ATIS available, you will get an ATIS, but in our case now we have no information, and so we'll have to use the weather ATIS prompt and enter the ICAO code for departure airport and then select METAR prompt. That way, in a few seconds, through the received messages prompt, you will get the latest METAR. Here it is, Bremen Airport, and we can see the wind is 100 degrees, 11 knots. We've got 20 degrees and the QNH at 1029. That's what I'll enter straight away, otherwise I'm going to forget. So everything's selected on the altimeters, all 3 of them. And from there, we'll pick out our DIFRIPS model and start with the flight planning now. So we've got departure runway 09, we've got the Airlock Tree Quebec departure route, and because of our uplink that we did, we already have the en route airways inserted, and so what's left to do is select the ILS approach, or the approach itself at the destination airport, and the arrival and transition. So once that is done, the routing is completed in the flight plan page. Then next we have the R standing for the radio setup, Bravo Mike November, and we'll take Hotel India Golf Beacon as well. Sorry if I go through this very quickly, but this is not about the flight planning itself. This is about the usage of the ATSU menus. But what I do want to try to show is how you can integrate the departure preparations with regard to flight planning into the ATSU workflow. So according to our DIFRIP model, we are now getting to the init B page, and there we can enter the estimated zero fuel weight, which is in our case 57.2. We can also enter the block fuel value, which is 6.4. I'm going to leave open the ZG, center of gravity, for the zero fuel weight because we don't have an actual data yet. These are pre-planning values. Good thing is, if we enter those values, so for example 57.2, should the final value later on with the final load sheet be a lot different, either heavier or lighter, then we can quickly see the difference to our planned value that we had in the operational flight plan. Okay, we've just reached the boarding time, so GSX is asking us if we want to board the amount of passengers that were pre-planned. Just hit enter, and then GSX will start its thing with the animations of the boarding process. And once more, don't worry about having to open doors yourself. That'll happen automatically. If you don't use GSX, don't worry. The internal boarding simulation will gradually add passengers to the aircraft, which you can monitor on the options payload page. Right now we can see the fuel report has arrived, so we're just going to match the delivered quantity, make sure that the fuel on board plus the delivered fuel quantity equals the amount that we have right now. If it's not equal, then you'll have a fuel difference indication, and the maximum difference is 300 kilograms, so 0.3 tons. From time to time, make sure to have a look at the received messages page, just to make sure that you don't miss anything. Also, while the boarding process is ongoing, it is actually a good time now to do your departure briefing. While the boarding is ongoing, we will receive a preliminary load sheet report. And you'll see that pop up any second now. There it is. So we shall have a look at that. And obviously it's not the final report. So the final report might have some small differences. Nevertheless, what we can do is have a look at the preliminary load sheet report and use those values to then request our performance data for departure. So the preliminary report says we are going to expect 57.2 tons, takeoff fuel 6.2, which is correct. That'll give us a takeoff weight of 63.4 tons. So let's have a look at the options payload page. And we can see that while boarding is ongoing and loading is ongoing, the zero fuel weight slowly increases to our requested value. So now that we're getting close to having boarding completed, we shall use the time to start the APU, for example. But also we'll switch on the seatbelt signs and prepare for departure. So now we get to our performance request. We will use the weather that we have received. So we're going to type in Echo Delta Delta Whiskey for Bremen, runway 09, no intersection, no anti-ice, runway is dry. However, we will use packs off. Wind data, I'm going to enter half of the wind component, so 100 at 5. QNH, I will enter 1 hectopascal less than what we have, just in case it does drop a little bit. And for temperature, I put 1 degree Celsius more than we presently have, just in case it gets a bit warmer. And that's exactly what I do in real life. And quite often that saves me from having to request or calculate the takeoff performance again, just in case some of these values change. From the actual load sheet now, we have the takeoff weight of 63.5 and the MAC takeoff weight at 29. Enter that and we'll send that request off. An answer will take about 3 to 5 minutes, so be patient. Luckily, we can fast forward in time here. And so here we are with the answer to our performance request. And we can see the calculations give a result of flaps 1. Well, that's what we requested, obviously. But it gives us a flex of 79. The speeds 125, 125 and 131. We know transition is at 5,000. NADP 2 departure procedure and the engine out is at 1,600 feet. For the trim settings, we just look at the main trim wheel and we can see that it'll be up 0.4 with a CG of 29. And that's it. Now we get to the second flight plan or secondary flight plan, copy deactive, and quickly we'll have a return flight plan just in case something goes wrong, like an engine failure. And we'll do that with no star, no via. Again, I've shown this so many times, so I'm just going through this very, very quickly. If you are interested in learning how that is done, I've done, well, at least one video on the full procedures for the preparations. Another thing that I do is I'll put in a radial fix info for the departure runway, so Bremen 09. The outbound course should be 086 if I remember correctly. Yes, it is. And so by entering a radial there as well of 086, we get a straight line for the engine out procedure, and we can fly that with heading select later on in case we have an engine failure. But that is it. That is now the procedures completed. And so we'll use GSX again to start the pushback procedure. First of all, we will switch the APU bleed on, put the beacon on, and external power off. And then we go down to the ACP panel and select init, or int, that means interphone again. And there we have automatically the GSX pushback menu pop up. We'll just simply select where we want our nose and tail to be heading. And there we go. The pushback is initialized. Now I haven't shown here how to use the PDC request, and what I'll do is I'll quickly show you a live recording that I did on Twitch. That was in Berlin-Schönefeld with our good friend Buddy, who gave us the PDC clearance. And so you'll see a demonstration of how that is done, and for that you will need a service, an ACAS service like Hoppy, and of course a ATC service, so a controller who's able to give out PDC clearances. So here comes the clip. Did I send that off now? I forgot. Right, there we are. Send that off, receive messages. Now, I'm going to have a look at and see if we can get the ATC clearance, so pre-departure clearance. So we've got FLI 87 Victor, and we have gate number 55. Information, well, it's a different ATIS. I can tell you that it's 2495. So let me just put that in here. 2495.
Out. Balloon show out. Information. Hotel. Net report.
Right. So I've got hotel. So that's what I've put in here. Now, before I request, obviously, I'm going to have to put in the flight plan, which I shall file. Right. So let's put that. Right, so I shall file now. We'll send that off. And then hopefully it'll work. Let's see if we got a clearance. Hey, look at that. Here we are. We got the PDC. Buddy, thank you much for doing this. Yes, Buddy, I've just received it. Excellent. So we're cleared via the 07 left departure Brunkendorf 70. We'll check that. That's correctly inserted. Initial climb 4000. Which I shall enter now into the FCU 4000. And the squawk is 2170. 2170. And so now we'll check the second page. Have a nice flight. Thank you very much. We are able, so accept that. And now Buddy will get the, or the controller will get the confirmance, or the confirmed message, meaning that he can see that I've read the message and I've accepted the departure clearance. And then now we're just going to wait for the confirmation that the whole process is completed. A few minutes, and then you will receive your clearance, which you read through and accept. And once you've accepted that, you get the request status message saying that so the PDA is received, clearance confirmed, and that finishes the whole process. Okay, so that's how the PDC, pre-departure clearance, works. If you're unsure if a controller offers PDC, simply private message him and ask. Okay, so we come to the end of the video. Thank you much for watching, and keep practicing that workflow. I'm sure you will get the hang of it very, very quickly. One last thing though, let me say a big thank you to all the amazing people who have been supporting me over the last, well, 2.5 years now, here through YouTube and of course through Twitch. It really means the world to me. Thank you very much to each and every one of you. Alright, that's it guys. Enjoy your flight sim, and I will see you again here soon with a new video. Take care, as always. Happy landings.